We're going to start with a 1-minute introduction from each of the panel members, I guess. So, David, take it away.
Hello, I am David. You may remember me from such talks as building an API for Icelandic. Yeah, I guess that was the first project that I really went full ES6, and at that time I was using Babel. I'm still using Babel on the front end because Node 4 hadn't shipped by then. But yeah, I guess since then I've been using ES6 in every project, much to my colleagues' disgust. So we can talk about some of the issues why you might have won that. I'm sure it'll come up in the panel. But yeah.
My name is Orne, and I'm a front-end developer at Takumi, working on the working on the advertising tool, and I've been using Javascript 6 for quite some time, and I use it in all of my JavaScript projects. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Arnar. I work at Quizlet as a full stack engineer. Yeah, I've been working on both the web and the server at Quizlet. All of our Node.js projects now use Babel. So, yeah.
So we're gonna try to have it a bit interactive. I'm gonna start out with a question to lead this on, but I want every one of you to participate in this panel. So if you have any question, please ask when there's an opportunity. Don't everyone throw the questions all the time, but when you see the opportunity, raise your hand and I will try to get your question to the panel. Also, we're gonna have an empty seat at the end of the panel. So if any one of you is experienced on anything that we're discussing and you want to give us your insight on the problem or the thing that we're discussing, please come up and sit with us. So yeah, I want to start out by asking what is ECMAScript 6 and the background on it. Why are we here discussing it and why is it needed?
I want to start with that.
Sure, I can start. So ES6 is basically the latest standard of JavaScript. It adds a lot of new things to JavaScript, like constant let, which are lexically scoped variables. So you don't have the stupid hoisting thing, like you can redeclare variables and stuff like that. It adds, as you can see, arrow functions, classes, constants. It adds native promises and templating strings, so you can stop the stupid concatenation of strings. The reason to use it, was that another question? Yeah. Basically, at Quizlet, our main goal is to always be up to date, and like I said, a lot of these things they solve a lot of quirks in JavaScript. For example, functions in JavaScript, they're strange. How you bind this and do all sorts of magic, which arrow functions, for example, help you solve. Also, like constant let, you don't have no scope on your variables anymore. And by using const, you have a constant, so you can't redeclare it. So it just helps writing safer code, for example.
Okay, thanks for that. Maybe another question about maybe the cons, because we've heard a lot of good stuff about ECMAScript 6. What are the cons? Are we in the phase of early development? Is it already ready for us to use in production? And yeah, are there any cons to ECMAScript 6?
No. So I'm on a project at the moment where I'm using ES6 via Babel, and it has to work in many older browsers. We're supporting Internet Explorer 9 in this project, and I think that's probably, hopefully, as far back as most people will need to support. Internet Explorer 8 is going to be retired in January, so Internet Explorer 8 is almost impossible to support because it doesn't support many ES5 features, like properties, so it's almost impossible to, like, you can't even polyfill that, it's just impossible, so it's a complete nightmare. But assuming that you only need to support IE9 plus, then I think there are really no disadvantages. There is a tiny bit of setup. You have to configure something like Babel to transpile the code, but there's a lot of situations, if you're targeting modern browsers, or if you're using Node, where it just works straight out of the box, so it's good to get familiar with what new tools are available, I guess.
So we have a question from the audience.
Yes, hi, my name is Axel. Do you know how long until ECMAScript 6 will run natively in the browser? So without transpiling to ECMAScript 5 with Babel or something similar? And another question about the speed when it's run natively in the browser. Have you taken a look how well it runs? Because we have a slide of it.
Chrome, newest version of Chrome at least, supports arrow functions and constant left, I think. And promises, yes. So Chrome already supports a lot of ECMAScript 6 features.
Edge supports.
And Microsoft, yeah, the new Microsoft project. Firefox probably also. So a lot of browsers already support Node.js 4.0. That's a lot of ECMAScript 6 features. So it's already native. And they're supposed to have some performance in the slide. But yeah, cons. I think that.
Yeah, I think when you're targeting multiple browsers, then you always have to have a system for polyfilling support. And fortunately, there are very good tools available. Things like Core.js and Babel make it very easy to write code, ES6 code, that targets all the way back to IE9 without any problems. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's the issue of whether it's natively supported is kind of not that relevant, because you're always going to have to support other browsers. And you're never in control of the runtime environment. You're always going to have to polyfill somehow. So,
do we have another question from the audience?
Hello, my name is Kim. I have a question about the arrow function. And I'll just check this slide here.
Who's driving this thing?
So as a programmer, I like to have everything like down to the rule. Like I like to have very strict syntax and very lit everything to make sure everything all programs the same way. When do you use arrow functions, and when do you use other kinds of functions? Like, because there are one or two or three more function types.
It's about consistency.
Yeah, I'm talking about consistency.
Awesome. Good question.
I don't have a proper answer to that question, but at least at Prism we always use arrow functions. We just have we have a ESLint setup, and it yells at you if you don't use an arrow function. So that's our solution to it.
Yeah, same.
yeah, I think just use a tool like ESLint, which is very smart. It's a full AST parser, so you can write complex rules like you should use an arrow in this situation, but not in this situation. And then just stick to whatever your linter says. But I think the point of the arrows is to reduce errors. Like they use the lexical scope from outside them, so you don't effectively have a bound this. So you're just way less likely to make errors with this. You don't have this that's undefined. So I think most of the time it just solves problems. It makes your code less error prone. So I would say just use them. They're great. They're a great improvement on JavaScript's built-in function.
Awesome. So on the topic of scope, a new keyword or a syntax was introduced in ECMAScript 6 called const. So it's highly debatable. I mean, there are some problems regarding it that, for example, if you assign an object to it, you can change the stuff inside. It's not being freezed. You could freeze the object, but still you can iterate on it. So what's your what's your point on that? How are you using it? Because I've seen a lot of React people, for example, use const all the time. So maybe you guys React quiz.
I only use const in my React. Because a couple of times I use let, but never use var. But const is the way to go, in my opinion, at least.
So, like the basic concept you have to understand about const is that you're only saying that the reference should be a constant. So you cannot change the memory that it points to, but you can change what's inside it. So if you have an array, that will always point to a certain memory, but you can't actually add to the array because you're just expanding the memory. So at Prism we always use const, except if we absolutely need to redefine a variable, which is very rarely. So yeah.
So just one question to Automat: are you using immutable.js on top of that, or?
Yeah.
So maybe you can explain it as well.
Explain immutable.js. Like, why is it strong with?
Okay, yeah, immutable.js is like just as the name says, it's an immutable data structure. So by using it, you're just minimizing the risk of doing some weird JavaScript mutability stuff that no one understands and just fucks up your application.
Yeah, so when I was working on the project with Jörg, we had a big discussion about immutable.js. I personally don't like it. I think immutability is a good idea, but I think immutable.js immutable.js is a library from Facebook which adds mutable types and a whole load of other things. I mean, that's one of my first problems with it. I think it's a really big bloated library, and basically they wanted to add immutability to React. They didn't know how to do it, so they made this massive immutability library, and it just doesn't fit in JavaScript very well at all, in my opinion. I find the API for it quite clunky, but I think it's a good idea, and one day there will be a better immutability library. I've used one called IMMU before, which is just immutability, no extra types, but it works kind of similar to const, or how you would expect const to work, that if you try and say you have an object that's immutable by this library, if you try and modify a property on it, or try and add an array on it, then it will throw. And obviously this isn't ideal, like runtime immutability is not that fun, like you still don't have good tooling for in your editor telling you, hey, this is never going to work because this object is immutable, because it's not like a native concept in JavaScript yet, but I hope one day it will be just native. I think this is just a stopgap until they add proper mutability to JavaScript, which hopefully will be in like ES16 or something. JavaScript 2024, I don't know what they're going to call it. Yeah. Everyone else loves it though, so ignore me.
So yeah, on the topic of additional libraries and additional stuff, what about the other languages that have been used for some time now, Dart, TypeScript, CoffeeScript? What do you think about those? Because ECMAScript 6 is really solving a lot of problems that they are also solving. And for example, why people jumped to CoffeeScript, or the reason for that was because they wanted some extra feature set and some easy way to write things. So what's your take on that? Are they gonna die slowly as Babel maybe grows larger in size and becomes more bloated, or are they gonna stay intact?
Sure. I've never used CoffeeScript, but I know the TypeScript. I don't think that's gonna die yet, at least, because that just adds type safety to JavaScript, which is something that is, in my opinion, at least, missing. I think we'll see how like Facebook's library flow does. If that's good, then maybe TypeScript will die as well. But I can't say anything about CoffeeScript.
Yeah, I don't use CoffeeScript.
I never really got into CoffeeScript either. Like, why is this? I think it depends whether you think it's important that the ES6 is on a standards track, it's discussed by a committee, it's being implemented in the browsers. I mean, this is the difference between this and any other compiled to JS language, I think. I mean, if they were all on an equal footing, then why use CoffeeScript? There are much better languages which compile to JavaScript. But one day it will be supported natively. I think an environment like Node 4 already supports a lot of this stuff. No transpilers or anything needed. So I think this stuff is going to become standard JavaScript. You're going to have to know this style of programming. So I think that's a good reason to learn it over something like CoffeeScript or TypeScript. I think TypeScript is a bit different. Like it is a superset of JavaScript, and it will probably support ES6, but continue to add types on top of that. So I think TypeScript is a little bit of a different one. CoffeeScript, I think, will get less popular because the problems that it was trying to solve are now going to be solved better by ES6 and be natively supported in browsers and Node eventually, 2024.
So do we have any questions from the audience?
Because I've crashed and burned on the const let thing. You guys said you use const, and I know the linter shouts at you if you use let instead of const. But like for the moment, the how const works, like you can define a variable twice. Actually, I think it doesn't throw any failure, at least in React Native or anything. But are you trying to keep your scopes really small in order to watch out that this doesn't happen, or do you have because it says it will fail there in React Native, for example, it won't fail. It will fail to put another value in it, but it won't tell you anything yet. So it will just keep on going. Are you guys why not just let on anything and keep your scope really small?
Yeah, so I just want to throw my idea out there. I have run into this part of this problem that you are describing, and it relates to that you are defining a global object when you forget to add the var let or const in front of it. So sometimes you have a constant, and then you are adding like a window dot the variable that you are trying to define. So I don't know why it happens. Maybe it's just Babel or something that's failing.
I've actually never run into this problem. The way I figured out that you can actually push to an array was because I saw a colleague do it. But at least with the build tools that we're using, if you try to redefine a const, if you try to reassign a value to it, our build system will crash and burn and tell you to fix this.
Yeah, Babel will tell you to fix this using Babel.
So to throw out a different opinion, I don't use const like this. I think const is really nice for, so you have a module that has some magic number that you need to share across your application. You can just do export const equals 20, my magic number or whatever. Give it a name, be able to reuse this just by importing it from the library, and know that it stays up to date across all your modules. I don't declare every variable as const. I use let for this. I think you should stop using var immediately. Let fixes the scoping issues and the hosting issues of var. So just like in my ESN, just have the keyword var is disallowed. And if any of you have heard of the strong mode proposal for JavaScript, which is an idea to just turn off the terrible features of JavaScript, like an opt-in thing. One of the proposals there is just, var is an error. You should never be able to use it because it's terrible. So I declare my normal variables with let. Again, as you say, if you're keeping the scopes small, you should be able to see your function on one screen. As long as you can do that, I think you're not too likely to make errors with this. Just another opinion.
It's always good to have someone on the other side, like the red team guy in the room. But yeah, on to a different topic. There's a lot of fuss regarding generators and delete keyword and all that. So what's your take on that? Are you already using generators to do some funny stuff?
What about this?
Yeah.
Sure. And we should. Don't use generators. They suck. This is a terrible idea. Enki, do you have a slide on weight? I don't think so. Yeah. Okay. So this is the last slide. Okay. Proposal in ES7 is a new way of doing this. So generators kind of pave the way for a new way of doing asynchronous programming. Obviously, everything we do when we write web applications is asynchronous. Like, you're always having to interact with an API. There's always things to do that asynchronous. And being able to write error-free asynchronous code is like way too hard in JavaScript. And once we can do this, like everything will work a lot better. So if any of you are familiar with C#'s async await, has anyone ever used this? Who is this audience? Like, yeah, this one old guy in the back. Okay, cool. Sorry. Yeah, so I think I'd really like to talk about async await.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's out of topic because
yeah, it's not ES6. Okay, so async await is a proposal for ES7. It's still going through standards approval, or whatever that means. An important thing to say is that like ES6 has been many years coming. It's taken many years to get through the process, and the idea is that like this shouldn't be how we do JavaScript. Like we should have more regular updates. We should be able to add features to the language and get them shipped much more quickly. So even though it's taken a couple of years to talk about ES6, ES7 should follow, you know, much more quickly. Kind of like how we had Node 0.10, 0.12, 4, you know, just like that. So, you know, it's like buses. We say this in England. I don't know whether this is true here. Like you wait for ages and then 3 come at once. Is that a thing that happens to buses in Iceland? I have no idea. Okay, cool. Wasted. All right. Yeah. So basically, generators are a good idea because they're paving the way for a much better way to do async. I think if you're only going to use ES6, you should stick with promises. But you're probably using Babel. So I want to just, okay, do I need to explain? Yeah, okay. Babel also supports, like, you can opt into as much crazy new stuff as you want. So you can opt into ES6, you can opt into all the ES7 proposals, and you can opt into all the, there's a level above that called stage 0, which is like basically any idea we had on a Friday afternoon, which we put in Babel. Like it could be any, but some of these are good. And since the code is transpiled, like as long as Babel works, I've never experienced any bugs in Babel, like the transpiler is good, then why not just, you know, opt into ES7 as well? You know, let's just go the whole way. And yeah, so.
Just to add to that, Quizzup uses stage 0 in all production code.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm using stage 0 in production code as well.
But async await is at stage 2.
Yeah, okay. Apparently async await is in stage 2, which means that there has an accepted proposal, but it's not been approved by standards committee yet, but who cares what they think? The point is that it works in Babel today. The transpiler converts the code correctly to ES5 every time, and it makes it much easier to write asynchronous code without making a big mess of it. So I would say stop using promises, don't use generators, go full async await, you will love it. We can do this!
So question from the audience.
You talked about constant and all that stuff. A lot of people here probably don't know what all this means.
Sorry.
But there is kind of. I just want to know what are the common pitfalls that you know when you first get into ES6 that you know if there are any pitfalls.
I've got the module loader.
Misunderstanding.
Yeah. Who wants to talk about what the module loader is?
So classes.
Who wants to talk about module loader? The module loader, oh my gosh. I think I've written more new types of errors because of this stupid module system than ever before. Do you have any examples of the module loading? Yeah, okay, this is a good example. So there's all this fancy new stuff, like how you load stuff from other libraries. And the top example is like a perfect example. So import square diag from library. So this means that there's a corresponding thing that looks almost exactly like this, which would be export, and then just in case you're not familiar with this syntax, this extracts these named properties from an object. So this will export an object with the property square and property diag, and there will be functions, I presume, that you're then going to call later on in your module. The problem comes when you accidentally do import square from library, because then it refers to the default export of the module, and that might not even be defined. So then suddenly you're back in undefined is not a function land, and you're like, what the hell? And it's complete. You can easily create a module, and it's very common to create a module which has no default export. It only exports named functions or named parameters. And I have written this by accident too many times. Like probably once a day I do this, and every time I'm like, why can't I do this? And it's super annoying. Like you will, yeah. Any solutions to this? Like,
I don't have the solution, but I'm on the extremely opposite side. I love this because it's so nice. Like for example, if you lose the brackets there and say import square from library, then you have to do, in order to get to square, you have to say square.square, and I don't like that. I like having my function names clean, so
yeah,
I love this.
So I think it's good, but you have to remember to do it.
Yeah.
More questions from the audience? It was a good question.
Yeah.
No one else?
So pitfalls.
So
I did talk about some pitfalls.
This guy.
That's a killer, right?
Here we go.
Since you love this syntax so much, I really felt like coming here and telling you how much I hate this syntax.
It's a trap.
To me, this syntax is completely unnecessary if you have a require common.js. The only thing that it does is, because Javascript explains, you have the destructure syntax in ES6, so you can use that with any other module syntax to extract the things that you want. So that's not part of the module syntax. And it just complicates things if you can just have a require function which actually returns something. The other thing that, and this is definitely a problem with Babel, but I've often had the pitfall of trying to debug the code, and it won't find my func when you're debugging. And it's because it has been renamed to myfunc2 or something. It's at least in the versions I've been using. And so that's like, you'll have to like search for it in the closures, and it's really weird. You're used to be able to hover all the variables and see their values, but that won't work for this syntax in Babel. And the other thing is, if it's exporting a function or a constructor or something, you can't call it immediately. You have to first put it into a variable and then call it later. Yeah. So I mean, it depends on the libraries that you're using. A lot of libraries are structured, old libraries or common libraries are structured like this, but yeah, that's just two of the things I don't like about this syntax. So.
One thing I want to add to that, which I love about this syntax, is that import actually imports as a const. So you can't, if you import, like in this example, my func, if you try to really find my func somewhere in your code, it will like assume it's a const and it will throw an error into your face. So that's a nice thing about this. Other thing that I really like in the React world is that a lot of React components that take in props. So you have this props property, and that can have like billions of other keys. And then you can use this syntax by putting like curly braces around it and exporting the variables you want. And then you have them as a single named variable instead of having to do a million lines of code to export every variable.
He's gonna hate.
So, any more questions from the audience? Anyone want to talk? come up here in front.
I don't want to rant. I have one question. For those who don't know, ES6 Babel transpires to ES5 or even as low as ES3. But when debugging, you probably lose your lines. So if you write something in line 20, it's get transferred to ES5, you don't have a line number. How do you deal with that in your work environment?
Is everybody going to say Webpack?
Yeah.
So it's very easy to set up source maps for Babel in Webpack, and they work incredibly well. You can just see the ES6 code in the browser, you put breakpoints on it, it all works. Yeah, just set up your source maps, and it's not a problem. I think this is the same issue that we have with any time we transform JS code, like whether we minify it, uglify it. We need to have source maps to get sensible line numbers and variable names back. So. But it works great. I mean, to echo what Joko said, like Webpack is really great. Supports all this stuff really well. It's definitely my build tool of choice. Everyone thinks Webpack's great.
Yeah.
Apart from me.
So what about the same problem for the server side? Like how do you set that? Because on the web you always ship like a file, but on the server you have to actually start that. Yeah, or not. So how do we deal with that when you don't have Webpack?
We use Webpack and SortMap.
Okay, so you compile the code ahead of time?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so yeah, probably worth talking about that. I'll just say how I do it. With Babel, you can just do import Babel/register, and that comes along and basically monkey patches all the required statements so that they will now load ES6 code, and it sounds like a terribly bad idea, but it actually works perfectly. So you just have this one line at the top of your index.js that you're gonna is your entry point for your node application, and then you can just write ES6 code from there on, ES7 code, whatever Babel supports. You can just write Babel code from there on. Babel also has a REPL that supports ES6, and you can also just pass it scripts to node Babel or Babel nodes. Babel node, yeah. Great name. Do you want to tell us about the compile ahead of time?
Yes, so I think I'm actually wrong. I don't think we use Webpack. I think we use Scope, but it's the same. We can just define source maps, and it shows us the correct line.
Use Webpack.
I just want to pick up the thing that David was talking about because I use this myself for my company. It's really useful to be able to just do it so simply. You don't have to do anything complex, and if your application doesn't get loaded until it's like ready, it doesn't matter if it takes three extra seconds to start up. And it also gives you the free source mapping, so you get the correct line numbers, and it maps to your own code. So it's pretty good.
It just works, TM.
Yeah, exactly.
It works really well. Babel is an amazing tool.
So, can we have like a final question from the audience, or do you know everything there is to know about ECMAScript 6?
One final, two questions.
I see that you're big fans of that. Again, it seems like VAR is a very common way, like with other languages, to handle variable declarations. I can clearly see the use case where that can become very handy. But why do you prefer that over VAR as a standard way?
So just to be super clear, you can redefine things that variables that have been declared with let. The only difference is that they have block scoping, not function scoping. So VAR in JavaScript has function scoping, and that's not normally what you'd expect. Like something that's defined inside a for block, for example, would be available outside. That fixes this. So basically, variables work like they do in every other language that's sensible. So yeah, and you can reassign to them. Like that's use cases still available to you. As these guys said, if you don't want that, then use const. You can't reassign it. The reference at least. But yeah, let you can just have let the place bar. You don't have to worry about hoisting. You don't have to worry about weird function scoping issues. It just works how it always should have worked in the first place when they designed the language. 5 minutes ago, yeah.
Anyone else want to say anything? Sorry.
Okay, so thanks for. No, okay. So thanks for coming to the panel. I think it was very informative for everyone, every single one of us. I mean, we discussed a lot of things. So I'm just going to ask you, how did you like this format, rather than just a simple talk or a presentation? Not like passing Jökull or some, or the guys who are talking, but like, how do you like this? Would you like us to do this more often?
Yes. I want more arguments. You're the same person.
Yeah, maybe we'll have something that is more like plotty, native versus partly native or something. Or EF versus Angular. Everyone would be dealing with public scars. But yeah, thank you all for coming, and hopefully I'll see you next time.